Hello everybody, today we're going to be talking about seven beauty trends, if you will, that I want to leave behind in 2019 as we move forward into 2020. Yes, I do know that we've already been in 2020 for about 2 weeks, but I have all these like New Year's makeup style kind of video ideas and I didn't want them to go to waste, so I'm still gonna be filming them and sharing them with you all. But yes, we're gonna be talking about 7 beauty trends I want to leave behind in 2019 because I don't think that there's much place for them in 2020. I do think that a lot of you might actually like some of these trends, and if you do, that's totally okay. Everybody has their own right to wear whatever they want on their face. That's what makeup and artistry is all about. But still, these are just 7 trends that I want to leave behind in 2019. Intro is done. Let's just get into the video. The first trend that I want to leave behind would be the Instagram baddie concealer highlight thing. If you are on Instagram for any amount of time during the day, and if you are looking at the Instagram baddie makeup looks on Instagram, you might know what I'm talking about. It's basically this idea of using concealer as a highlight for your makeup. Basically using a light tone concealer in places such as the under eye area, the nose, or the top part of the nose, the chin, the forehead, and I'm talking about this specifically is because the trend on Instagram is to basically highlight those places using concealer, and oftentimes it doesn't necessarily look good, or this is not necessarily a technique that looks good on the majority of people who are wearing makeup. I think Snitchery actually explained this brilliantly in one of her newest videos, in which she talked about how there is a certain population on Instagram that has fillers, that has plastic surgery, on which this technique actually looks really good. But for the majority of us who don't necessarily take part in these plastic surgery, in these injections, in these fillers, that technique doesn't necessarily look good. And the reason why I'm mentioning that in this video is because I think that we need to leave behind this sort of unattainable, or rather unrealistic, view on makeup techniques and what looks good on who, because I think there are so many people on Instagram that can do this technique and have it look good on them, but so many more of us are simply looking for more techniques and more ways to take makeup and implement it on our own faces. Because I do know that, for example, concealer on my chin or on my forehead wouldn't necessarily look that good whatsoever, and also I don't use concealer. But my point is, I really do feel like in 2020 we should be expanding our view as to what's acceptable or just what works for on our face. I realize that at this point in the video, I sound like I'm alienating those who have cosmetic procedures done to their face versus those who don't, and that's not what I want to do whatsoever. I just want to say that, like, yes, I really appreciate if somebody is using cosmetic procedures to make them happier or to achieve like a face shape that they want to achieve, but at the same time I feel like that perfect looking face, like that idealized face, is becoming so much of what we perceive to be as normal. And in my mind, that's not necessarily the healthiest mindset to be in, because really, like, so few people have that Instagram perfect face. And the fact that so many of the beauty techniques that are being circulated around, so many of the techniques that are becoming more and more available, are so centered on that specific perfect face. The fact that that's happening, especially that it's been happening for a few years now, is not something that I consider to be that good. I think that we should be able to have access, to have a lot of access to makeup techniques for different faces. If using concealer as a highlight all over your face looks good on you, then good for you, but I do know that I am not the only person that that does not look good on, and I want to leave that misconception behind in 2020 or in 2019. Really looking at makeup a little bit more universally rather than just being catered towards like a very structured, a very I would say uniform face shape. The next thing that I want to leave behind in 2019 would be matte liquid lipstick. Now, I feel like kind of a hypocrite because I still have a lot of matte liquid lipsticks in my collection that I love and that I use, but I really do think that we should be leaving behind this sort of like, I guess, very dated trend of basically wearing very dried out matte liquid lipstick and calling it an acceptable makeup look. Because yes, if you really, really like that look and you're into it, kudos to you. But if you literally feel uncomfortable wearing a drying matte lip, it doesn't matter what brand it is from, even if it's like iconic like Anastasia, because her liquid lipsticks are so iconic, and yet for some reason they are so very drying. I'm just giving it as an example. I think that we should just be introducing a little bit more moisture into our makeup looks. And for me, I personally think that the only way I really wear liquid lipstick anymore is if I'm wearing like a super really bold lip and I want it to stay in place for a very long time. That's when I pull out a liquid lipstick. And if I am wearing liquid lipstick, I typically put a gloss on top because I just don't want that matte look, especially that like super dried out matte look that like just emphasizes all your fine lines and makes your it makes your lips look like 25 years older than you actually are. And also the other thing is, so many of these matte liquid lipsticks only look good on people who have lip fillers or lip injections or just those kinds of procedures done to their faces, which is fine. But I think that for the majority of us who don't necessarily have lip fillers or anything cosmetic done to our lips besides what we do to them ourselves, I think liquid lipsticks, especially if they're matte, don't necessarily work anymore, and I think that it would be great to leave that behind in 2019. Of course, if you like liquid lipsticks and you are okay with like the super drying kind, that is fine, do you, but I know that I personally will be leaving the majority of my liquid lipsticks behind in 2019. Also, let's talk about baking. Now, baking, I think that this will be a slightly controversial point to make, because baking in so many areas of the makeup industry is actually really instrumental to certain makeup styles. For example, drag queens have been doing baking for ages, and it obviously is so important to that specific niche of makeup and that style of makeup. Also, performance makeup can benefit greatly from the technique of baking. It's basically the concept of really piling on powder to certain areas of your face, letting it sit for a little bit, letting it bake, and then brushing it off later. So this is supposed to really make sure that your makeup stays in place. It essentially adds another layer of makeup to your face, and it creates that matte, but that's still like very like emphasized, really sculpted look that so many of us really wanted to achieve a few years ago. So I think that baking honestly has a place in certain aspects of the makeup world, but I do think that baking at its core has been a little bit overhyped, and it doesn't necessarily match where makeup is going in 2020, and that's why I want to leave it behind in 2019. I do think that there is still a need for baking in certain aspects of the industry, but for the majority of us, we don't necessarily need baking on a day-to-day basis. I can't remember the last time I baked my face, and I do makeup all the time, but I don't necessarily like baking because I find that A, you use a lot of powder and you basically end up looking like you have like foundation, or rather product, on your face, and I personally love like that very natural healthy skin appearance nowadays. So I don't think that baking is a technique that adheres to that new makeup style that I have. Also, there's no need for it because I have foundations that stay on for a pretty long time if I need them, and if I'm being very honest, usually I'm not wearing foundations. So therefore, baking is a technique that I personally am going to be leaving behind in 2019 because I don't do it. And maybe like in like the heat of the Texas summer, I will be baking my face. If I have like a full face of makeup on and I'm going out into the sun, maybe I'm going to see a pride parade or something like that, then I'll do baking. But before then, no thank you. Speaking of baking, that brings us to our next point, which would be full coverage. I am not interested in seeing full coverage in 2020 because guess what? We all have flaws. Nobody's skin is perfect. We all have nuances. We all have pores. We all have blemishes. We all have discoloration. And why not just make that a little bit more acceptable in today's world in 2020? There are so many problems that we have in today's world, in the modern world. I would argue it's pointless to worry about the texture of your skin or the discoloration on your skin or imperfections that you might have on your skin, and to basically slather on full coverage makeup to try and hide those imperfections, when really there are so many other things we can be worrying about rather than covering up our entire face in a mask. And again, I am not trying to judge anybody who wants to put on a full coverage face of makeup. That's fine. Like, you do what you want to do, because that's what the wonderful thing about makeup is, that we can literally take it and we can put like art on our face in a way that makes us happy, and that's the beauty of makeup. So if you want to do full coverage, go for it. But I personally, like, I don't want to do that, because A, it's more time consuming. I devote more time to my makeup doing like a full coverage look. B, I devote more money towards buying full coverage makeup products, because like the whole idea of full coverage is that you're using more product on your face, and that product tends to run out. So like essentially I'd be buying more foundation, more concealer, more powder, you know, like to like achieve that full coverage effect on my face. And it's kind of like, I don't really want to do that. Plus, like, it just ends up feeling heavy. Like, no matter what type of makeup you're using, you still feel it on your face, especially if you're used to not wearing any makeup on your face. You know what I mean? So I personally will be leaving full coverage behind in 2019, because I personally am not about that right now. I have other things to worry about than blemishes on my face. I mean, like, obviously, like, if I mean, okay, let's just say that I'm going out somewhere. I would probably like cover this up with a little bit of foundation, you know, because like I have like a lot of breakouts here, but like at the same time, like I have big pores here, and I don't really care about covering them, because they're still gonna be there, you know? Maybe my mind will change. But yeah, full coverage is definitely something that I will be leaving behind in 2019 in favor of a lower coverage makeup. Another thing that I want to leave behind in 2019, nose contouring. And I know that a lot of people nose contour, and if you are one of those people, that is totally fine with me. I do not care about what goes on your face. Really, I just care about what goes on my face, because that's the kind of makeup that I'm doing. But here's the thing. I have a rather large nose, basically. I have a nose which is really oily right now, but it's quite, I mean, it's not necessarily like your typical cookie cutter, I would guess, like perfect nose. Like, my nose is my nose, and I like it. Like, I really do. Like, I feel like it's like a nod to my Indian heritage whenever I look at my nose, because that's where I get like my nose from. So I remember when I was like younger, I'd want to contour it, because I'd be like, okay, I want to make it look straighter. I want it to make, like, I want it to look slimmer. I want like this unevenness to go away. I want it to like just look better, because I didn't like my nose. But now I'm like, I like my nose. It's not going anywhere, and there's no need to change it. And plus, like, nose contouring does take up time, like in your makeup routine. And also, here's the other thing: if you're like me and you don't wear foundation on a day-to-day basis, there's really no need to do nose contouring, because essentially you're putting on the nose contour onto your bare skin, and who wants to do that? You know? You feel me? It would look kind of weird, and it would look kind of muddy, and it would look just like a mess. So I'm not going to be doing that in 2020. So I'm leaving nose contouring behind in 2019, even though realistically speaking, I did leave it behind in 2018, because I can't remember the last time I contoured my nose. It's been a while. Ooh, okay, another thing I want to leave behind in 2019 would be intense highlight. I feel like a hypocrite, because my highlight right now is quite intense. I used like the Kylie Jenner highlight, by the way, like that loose highlight that I really, really like, and I applied it with like a super dense brush. But for the most part, I didn't put highlight on anywhere else, because I only like highlight in this area, and this is as intense as I'll go. Because I personally think that highlight in general can look so good in pictures and on video. It looks fantastic. But the minute you step outside in natural daylight and the sun hits your face, highlight tends to magnify a lot of stuff, unless you're using like the best formulas, unless you're using the best techniques, and unless you have like the best skin. But if you're not all of those like criteria that I just listed, highlight tends to magnify some sort of things, and I don't necessarily like that. My cheekbone exists. I mean, I can highlight it, but it still exists. Like, there's no need to like put like on like piles and piles and piles of highlight when I have a pop and eye look. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like, that's what I'm thinking right now. So like, I probably will not be putting on like loads and loads and loads of highlight on in 2020. I might get carried away sometimes and I might still do it. But at the same time, especially if I'm just doing makeup to go out or just for the heck of it, I'm not really gonna be wearing a lot of highlight. I like a small like amount, like a small kiss of highlight just to give my cheekbone that pop, but I don't want to load it on because I don't want to look like I did in 2016. Oh yeah, another thing that I want to leave behind in 2019 would be Instagram brows. Instagram brows, those thick, bushy brows that take such a long time to do. It really does. I'm the first to say that I am not good at doing brows. It's kind of like ironic that I have a YouTube channel dedicated to makeup, but I can't make my brows look good. That's why I'm so thankful that I have bangs to cover up most of my eyebrows, because if I didn't have bangs, I would just look like I'm bad at doing makeup, which is true, but like you don't need to find that out right away, you know what I mean? Anyway, Instagram brows. They kind of look a little bit too much for me at this point, and I just feel like Instagram brows in so many ways can become like the real focus of the look if you're not too careful. And I mean, I really like that Glossier undone, very like just imperfect brow. That's what I'm into right now. Like, and yes, I like to like make my brows look pretty bold, but at the same time I like to go look for like a relatively soft look. And yeah, like I'm into that right now. And I'm also into like filling my brows in with a powder. I know that some of you might not agree because like a lot of, well, not a lot of people, but like a few of you guys, or one or two people, have told me to use a brow pencil. I don't wanna, I just don't. I just like to use like a powder for my brows pretty much. Like that's what I go for. And I'm just not too interested in making my brows look perfect, Instagram worthy, you know, because that's not fun for me. And I do makeup because it's fun. Like I wouldn't do makeup if it wasn't fun. Because makeup is a lot of effort, and it's a lot of looking at yourself in the mirror, and it's a lot of concentration, and it's a lot of preparation. And I'm not gonna do it if it's not fun. Anyway, those are the 7 things I want to leave behind in 2019 with regards to makeup trends. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it relatively interesting. I will be doing another video like this, but instead of talking about makeup trends, I will be talking about just the makeup industry here on YouTube and really the makeup industry in general. So yeah, if you're interested in like seeing that sort of theme here on my channel, check back soon and that video will be up soon. I'm not sure when, but soon, because I'm gonna film it right after I film this one. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all next time. Bye guys.